Hey, what's up everybody? Welcome back to another collaboration conversation video. In this one, I have joining me yet again, Shaman Tim from the YouTube channel PsychedOut. And we take a little while to talk about spirituality really, and how we got into spirituality and the different practices and methods that we use, and the different, I guess you could say, role models or influences that have impacted our lives, and really how to integrate those spiritual teachings and insights into your daily life. So before we get to the conversation, I just want to give a huge shout out to Shaman Tim. He's an awesome guy. I highly suggest going and checking out his channel. I'll link it in the description. He makes content about psychedelics and different spiritual insights he gets from that stuff. And yeah, I just want to say thank you, Shaman Tim. This is an awesome conversation, and I look forward to talking again. And for you guys, I hope you all enjoy this and can take some time to sit back and just watch me and Shaman Tim chat it up. So thank you all for watching, and let's get to the conversation.
And
Hey, what's up,
we
everybody?
are live. All right. What's up, man? It is good to talk to you again.
Oh yeah, bro. It's been too long.
We got a nice chance to catch up and talk about things of various interest before this, but
yeah, unfortunately, yeah. We aren't dealing with any technical difficulties for 2 hours prior.
Oh my God, yeah. We found a much better solution, and I think this will work out very nicely. So today we wanted to have a focused discussion on what exactly our spiritual practice is, and just kind of talk about topics related to that, how to integrate it into our daily lives. And this is a really interesting topic because it seems like both of us have had really interesting things going on in our lives lately. I watched your recent video about moving out of your former household.
Yeah.
I don't know if you wanted to talk about that at all or not.
Like right now? I mean, yeah,
maybe.
I'll give a gist of...
I was just curious because I went through something extremely similar myself, where the house that I grew up in was extremely toxic, and I did everything I could to try to get out of there. And it led me down this path of spiritual practice.
Yeah, the funny thing is we could make a whole podcast about this situation that's been going on with me. But really, it's why I haven't been making YouTube videos recently, because I've been focused and occupied with these other things that have been going on. And I did make a video roughly describing how it came to be. But yeah, I didn't share that as of right now, I've moved out of that house where all my videos have been recorded and where I've lived my whole life, actually, because the situation revolved around my 3 cats and their well-being, being in that house with all the fleas, and my dad, who is heavily against those 3 cats even being there in the first place. And there are a lot of pets in that house, so in that respect, I understand. But it was just a lot of unnecessary stress, tension, and hatred towards my cats and stuff, that I felt it was just a good time for me to get out, not only to help me and my 3 cats out, but to help my dad and his living situation out, which I talked to him about, telling him that, you know, because he was really upset that I was leaving, because I am his son. And I told him, you know, on the bright side, there's 3 less cats in this house. And, you know, that's what this is all about, that you don't want cats. So this is better for both of us in the long run. And, you know, I won't show around just to not move my camera. But yeah, I'm up at my grandfather's house, which is literally just right across the field. And he was gracious enough to let me come live with him. And my brother actually lives here as well. And me and my brother are in the midst of trying to find an apartment together. And then we'll go on from there. But yeah, I'm chilling up here right now. All my stuff, which was all in my room to begin with, because that was the idea. It was all confined into my room. All my stuff's up here, and yeah, I'm chilling up here now, slowly getting back into making videos, and I'm really glad to be talking with you. I feel like this is going to be a good addition to the channel.
Hell yes.
Thanks for letting me share that.
It's going to be fantastic. Absolutely, man. Yeah, I was curious in part because I had very similar situation. And by the way, that's awesome that you didn't have to move your stuff very far, because I've moved more times than I can count in my life, and
far
distances, and every single time it's been a colossal pain in the ass.
Yeah.
But
anyway, I left my bed down there because there's a second bed up here that I could use, and I had a bureau, a desk, my PC stuff, and all my posters and tapestries, and a shelf with all my like bongs and collectibles and stuff like that. Really wasn't that much stuff. It wasn't that hard to move, but yeah, I can understand how having to move far distances and not to your grandfather's house could be a hassle and stressful of a situation.
Yeah, man. Absolutely. But yeah, I really resonated with your situation overall, because that was something I dealt with very much myself, and I'm not going to go into details because we're going to eat up all of our time here. But yeah, I had a similar, very toxic relationship with my father in particular for a little while, and a few other members of my household, and it was really not a good place to be. I ended up having a whole lot of mental health issues, which is what I posted my recent video about.
Yeah.
And I went down to a really fucking dark place, man, and I almost didn't make it out. But there's something in me, that experience gave me kind of like this depth of perception and this drive to really embrace the path of spirituality, really. It's something that was kind of like my rock in my center place for a really long time while I was sorting all of that shit out. And so that's what brings us here today.
It's something that it has been with you your whole life, that you've been trained to not look at and had forgotten about. And it is literally a true blessing that you are still here today to talk with us and talk about it and be in touch with that part of yourself. Same thing happened to me. I mean, not on a depressive level, but just a level of not knowing what to do with myself. Same thing happened to my brother. He left the Marine boot camp and was lost and didn't know what to do with himself, and thought that our dad thought he was a failure, and he found that spiritual point. And my mom, who dealt with intense alcoholism and literally almost died many times, found that pit, that thing inside them that is alive and here and living, you know. And I just think that's so beautiful, and that's kind of what I want to talk about, you know, throughout this podcast.
Yeah, absolutely.
Do you want to start off with what you have listed?
So I don't have my talking points exactly organized in a nice note style, actually. I was going to try to start this organically. So maybe we should first talk about what exactly our influences have been, because it is really kind of interesting how the people that we learn practice from end up influencing and shaping the way we see and interpret that word, because that's a pretty loaded word, the term spirituality. So what how did you come to learn your practice? Who were some of your teachers?
That's a good first point, because that's literally my first point too. I feel like it's a good opening in talking about how the type of spirituality we are and who taught us and what teachings we're associated with. It might take me a minute to really recall the things, and I could just list them all off, but it did kind of go in an order, you know. And it started out with long ago when I was 15 years old, looking into Buddhism, just really for no reason, no depth reason that I can recall today. And just looking into that and seeing what that was about a little bit. And then I got around 16, got into LSD, and eventually started learning about the 60s counterculture and Timothy Leary and Ram Dass. And I learned about Timothy Leary, and then I learned about Ram Dass. And when I learned about Ram Dass, I saw that he had hours upon hours of lectures. And he was really the starting point of my spiritual understandings. And he kind of led me down the road of the other things that I've associated myself with now, things that he's talked about and recommended and did himself, as well as Alan Watts was a huge person. That's my brother's main teacher, is Alan Watts. And even for me, like I guess, you know, on a playful level, associate Ram Dass as my main teacher. But no, Alan Watts is brilliant, and I've listened to hours of him as well. But no, Ram Dass kind of grounded me and gave me my ground, and he led me to Indian spirituality. Truly, you know, the deep mystical parts of Buddhism and Hinduism that aren't really talked about on the surface, or are more seen as a sort of metaphor or just another religious belief. He led me to the depth and the divinity and the mystery in it. And he, you know, what I encountered because of Ram Dass was people, different people and different books and different methods of Eastern methods of philosophy. And just to list off some of the people, Ram Dass's guru, Neem Karoli Baba or Maharajji, Ramana Maharshi. I don't know if I remembered his name exactly, but I think it's like Nisargadatta Maharaj or something like that. Anandamai Ma, Thich Nhat Hanh. And being interested in that stuff itself has led me towards people today that I slightly associate with, you know, like I think his name is like Mingyur Rinpoche. Really, really funny, wise individual. But those are some of the individuals I've learned from and or read about rather. And for like,
definitely notice a lot of mystics in there. Like I definitely notice a lot of mystics in there. Like I would consider Ram Dass to be a mystic in a lot of his teachings and his recordings, and you know, his guru Maharajji and Anandamai Ma.
And looking into like Paramahansa Yogananda's line of gurus, his Yogananda's guru, what's his name, Sri Yukteswar, he was far out. Wrote the book The Holy Science. Talks about, I've heard some really far out stuff from that. Babaji, the guy Lahiri Maha something. It was Yukteswar's guru, but like just these different lines of Indian gurus and people that I've seen here and there, you know, different mystics and stuff, and to share some of like the literature that I've worked with. I got some books here, but I've worked with a lot of Zen Taoism, Hinduism, Buddhism, I guess what you would call Eastern philosophy or mysticism, which I guess you could say is its own thing.
Okay.
But yeah, things like that. And here is the Tao Te Ching, which is a book on Taoism.
Extraordinarily beautiful short book.
Extraordinarily beautiful. Yes, that's an understatement. Ramana Maharshi's Who Am I? This is a book comprised of, I think, 16 questions and answers of somebody that sat and asked Ramana these 16 questions. And this is really like his main teachings and is seen as his main source of what he thought and taught. And the other book is Miracle of Love, which is, I think, 1,000 stories of Neem Karoli Baba. And yeah, this book just shares the incredible, miraculous nature of this man, if you even want to call him a man. But yeah, I guess you could say my main associations are with Eastern spirituality and mysticism and philosophy and psychology. And I have learned a bit about Western psychology, like from Carl Jung, Freud, and they have good things to say, but something about the Eastern psychology and just the nature of what they're saying and like Zen and all that stuff, being in touch with nature. I don't know. There's just something about it that I saw, and it resonated with me very, very deeply. To this day, it still does.
The Eastern traditions have some kind of special essence to them that, in general, the Western traditions have not really had at all throughout history.
Westerners' minds are equipped to look at the exterior world.
Yes.
And while they've been mapping out the outside external world the whole time, the Easterners have been literally sitting and looking inward into the very functioning natures of mind and consciousness, that it doesn't even matter what's going on in the outside because they're seeing it coming from the source. And their descriptions and literature and teachings and practices are just extraordinary, really. But yeah, share
so
how you got into spirituality and, you know, where you're kind of situated now and how you define yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, just to give like a brief overview of how I came to this topic. I was always more or less fascinated with theology and religion in general, you know, going back to the time when I was a young child. I thought my parents would take me to church, and I thought it would be extremely fascinating, really. Like my brother and my sister, they would be falling asleep and they couldn't give a shit. But I was like,
while you were at church?
Yeah, while we were at church. And some of it was kind of boring, but I was thinking, this is some kind of explanation for the reality that we're in right now. And and it's probably important that we should get this lifetime right, because if the Christian theology is correct, then we've literally only got one shot, or we're going to be tortured forever for infinity, which is, in my opinion, a load of horse shit.
Yeah, it's pretty far out.
Yeah. So, I was always kind of fascinated by that. But then when I was a teenager, I started to, I really, when I was a adolescent, I really tried that lifestyle honestly and earnestly. But the more I tried, the more I realized that, you know, this wasn't resonating with whatever truth I was searching for. It wasn't resonating with me. So I don't remember. So I spent a lot of time being a very hardcore atheist. And then I don't remember how exactly, but I stumbled across a video by Alan Watts somehow when I was a young adult, and he was my first teacher. And I got into him right around the time when I was 18 years old and I started smoking cannabis. And so what I would do, I would just have these sessions where I would just like load up his lectures and, sit there and get the stuff ready and take a smoke while listening to Alan Watson enlighten my mind with his brand of Buddhism and Zen. So Alan Watts was, I consider him to be my first teacher, and for a long time he was my primary teacher. But since then I started learning about Buddhism more generally, and I got the book the Dhammapada, which is the ancient original teachings as recorded by the descendants of the disciples of the Buddha. And that's an incredibly interesting book. And it's basically Theravada Buddhism, the original teachings of Gautama the Buddha. And I was introduced to another spiritual teacher who goes by the name of Eckhart Tolle, who's kind of like a more modern Western guy.
Yeah, my mom loves him.
Yep, I have his book, The Power of Now.
Yep.
I listened to the audiobook version. I don't really read this copy, but this book changed my life. And I've listened to it at least 100 times from cover to cover. And I'm still finding bits and nuggets of wisdom in there. And he's all about, reclaiming power from your mind to concentrate on your being and live in the present moment.
I would consider him one of the present in the now, right now, popularized, enlightened individuals, like people like him, Sadhguru, who I listen to him every now and then. I don't really associate with him.
A quick side note, I've actually recently changed my mind on Sadhguru. I used to think he was interesting, but he doesn't resonate with me anymore.
And this might, what you're gonna say.
Kind of seems, this is my half-educated opinion because I did listen to a lot of what the guy has to say and I got one of his books, but he seems, the more I learn about spirituality and stuff, the more Sadhguru kind of seems like a commercial salesman guru rather than a person who's trying to sell you, because he'll say these kind of like mystical things that don't really make any sense.
This might be triggering to certain people that listen to him, but I completely agree, homie.
Because he'll like be answering a question, then he'll like totally go on a different track and he'll say things like so somebody will ask him a question like, Sadhguru, how do I feel less anger in my life? And then he'll say, everybody deals with anger. You must look within for the source of creation, or some shit like that.
No, I know what you're saying, homie. And I feel the same way. I assume we feel the same way about that. But
that's totally
he's a good source of knowledge. He's a good source of knowledge because he is from a lineage and a background of being in that culture and knowing those things. And who knows, he very well could have gotten lost into a state of meditation and been appraised by everybody because of that, and because it's in that culture. But to me, he comes off as somebody that very articulately and tightly knows the Indian, whether it's Hinduism or Buddhism or psychology, the Indian way of thinking and going about problems. And this is the thing, that somebody can appear that they know fully because their words that they say, the way they position and accord their body, the way they act, they can tell you everything, but there's this missing essence, and that can be the same thing in your own mind. You can know all the literature, you can have the Bhagavad Gita memorized, but you can very well still be missing the essential wisdom behind it. And that's kind of the vibe I get with Sadhguru a little bit.
I'll give him credit. He knows lots of really interesting traditional stories, and he's
exactly.
funny. He's entertaining. He seems really kind and loving. But a lot of times he says some really far out things that, like, when I think about it, they just don't really make any sense.
And not only that, man, but a lot of what I see associated with him, if it isn't just a random recommended video on YouTube, is to spend money on something or other that he's got going on.
Yep.
And that just doesn't seem to be, you know, it's like Osho vibes. It's like Osho again, you know, but low key type thing. But that's just my personal opinion on Sadhguru. But you can go back into how you got to where you are now.
Yes. It's been a gradual, in short, it's just been a gradual process of learning with a couple different teachers. Like Eckhart Tolle was one of my primary teachers. Alan Watts first opened my mind to Eastern philosophy and Eastern mysticism. He helped me learn and realize a lot of different things. I didn't find out about Ram Dass until much later, I only heard about him because when he passed away in 2019, I believe, and I heard the news that a spiritual teacher had passed away. I was like, oh wait, who's this? I was like, oh my, this guy was actually amazing.
My man Ram Dass died literally a month before anything revolving around COVID began. He was meant to leave before that bullshit, man. I am so glad. He literally, December, everything started in February, January and February. He passed away in December, I think 2 days before Christmas. And I feel blessed for him that in the state he was in, he didn't have to, like me and my brother talked about it. I don't know how I would have felt if I had to look at Ram Dass wearing a mask trying to talk to people, you know what I'm saying? I'm very happy for him that he didn't have to go through this nonsense. Man, for sure.
As a blessing for him that hopefully his center of consciousness can realize now. But anyway, so and then later on I also started learning about Hindu theology in general, which I find to be fascinating. And I've also looked into all sorts of other philosophies and traditions from the eastern part of the world. Like I've read the Tao Te Ching plenty of times. I've listened to Alan Watts' extensive overviews of Zen Buddhism. I've learned about traditional Buddhism, and I've also learned about some of the Hindu traditions. I have the book here, the Bhagavad Gita. It's a literal and interpreted translation of the text, which is a really fascinating book, and I might talk about that a little later. I've learned about this other tradition they have called Advaita Vedanta.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, that's really interesting stuff right there.
Have you ever listened to this is somebody I've actually been listening to recently. Oh, and I thought of another individual I learned from Rupert Spira, who really teaches about self-inquiry and the teachings of Ramana Maharshi, and he is just very, very precise with keeping it in regards to self, you know. But who is this other individual? Actualized.org. Leo talks about that bald guy that makes like 18-hour-long videos. But no,
I follow another guy who like heavily criticized him.
Dude, that guy knows. The thing is, you got to look past the he's coming from a place of a guru. He's speaking as a guru. You got to look past the ego that, oh, this guy must think he knows and he thinks he's so wise and all. I bet he's got his own problems and stuff. It's not about that. It's the information he's conveying, and he teaches Advaita Vedanta or Advaita Vedanta. And I've listened to at least 2 or 3 hours of him before, and he's got some cool shit to say. He's on board.
I've admittedly never really listened to him before. I just kind of vaguely knew that his channel was a thing. I just no, I just wanted to mention that I don't have an opinion one way or the other. I just mentioned that I follow this other gentleman, Adeptus Psychonautica.
Yep.
Yeah, who heavily criticized him for some of the content he was putting out.
What did he have to say?
It's been a little while since I heard his video.
We're just
He said
going off about all these people that get criticized and how we
anyway,
feel about them.
it's really not all that terribly important, and I kind of want to refocus myself on the topic here. So I don't really have a whole lot else to say about teachers and anything. Did that about sum up your thoughts?
I mean, like
what you said.
I guess I could ask you a question to make you dive a little bit deeper on like where you are now, but like who is your main, if you meditate, who is the main teachers behind the methods that you use when you meditate? Like for me, Ram Dass and maybe Alan Watts a little bit, and a lot of different Indian literature has taught me the different methods of meditation and daily practice, you know, and stuff like that. But like, yeah, who's the culprit behind what you do right
now? Eckhart Tolle with The Power of Now is my main inspiration and guiding light as far as meditation goes.
Is that the method?
Well, I don't know. He's my inspiration for my practice, and it's really hard for me to describe my method of meditation because I wasn't really classically trained or anything like that.
Right.
I just kind of started the practice, and then I figured out as I was going along like what the goal was and what I was supposed to be aiming for, and I just kind of do that. I'm a terrible teacher. Don't listen to me. But
I trust you, Shaman Tim.
I just love Eckhart Tolle, and lately I've been learning from more traditional Buddhist teachers like Joseph Goldstein, Jack Kornfield,
the Be Here Now network.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's an amazing podcast.
They posted like 1 or 2 episodes of Alan Watts a while ago, but they had like, it was just Ram Dass forever, and I watched like every episode of Ram Dass, dude. And yeah, he's really like the way my mind thinks is like, you know, it's so I bet it's running through hoops of how Ram Dass would think, how, you know what I mean, how all these different people I've mentioned would think and go about a situation. You know, at times I hear their voice in the way I'm thinking. I hear them, you know what I mean? Like,
yes,
just very influential teachers, you know?
Yeah. I find my thinking around spirituality and theology to be more centered around traditional Buddhism nowadays. And that being more in the sense that it kind of doesn't really answer the question of theology. It's like, how can we understand the situation of the universe in words? It's more about how to live happily and healthy in your current life.
Yeah, right.
Being open to the possibilities. So yeah, let me I kind of want to, I think I'm gonna shift direction a little bit. I'm gonna ask you a different question. So what exactly does the term spirituality mean to you?
When I think of spirituality, which, you know, happens pretty regularly, and you'll see why in a second, spirituality to me is existence itself and recognition of that existence is, and you are that existence. And if you want to look at spirituality as that, the recognition of existence or self, then that's what it can be. But if you want to think of spirituality as a method or a religion or a practice, I guess I could say that to me, spirituality is any sort of physical or psychological or even ethereal vehicle that brings you to the awareness that existence in essence is, you know, regardless of the form or dance that it's playing, it is. You are, I am, existence is. So I guess that
I see.
defines how I would describe spirituality.
Yeah, so I guess it would be very much in line with like existential realization.
Yes, and
Or,
a very different,
yes.
a very different type of existential realization. Not just, hey, look at my body, cool. Oh, look, I'm thinking. Oh, look at all this stuff around me. It's a recognition of the source, of the point in which everything is occurring. It's all occurring in one field simultaneously, you know, and it's like we've snubbed out that point. And the intellectual mind is great at concealing, you know, the depth in different phrases and methods and teachings and practices. You know, what you're thinking is going to be what keeps you away from the point. That's why spiritual practices that make you heavily focus in on the thinking mind can be very difficult, while something that is heavily focused on a certain sense or stimulus, you know, it can be more workable and easier for the individual, because the mind is what is so rampant and corrupt, you know.
I see. That's a really interesting answer, and I would definitely agree with everything you just said. And yeah, that always kind of struck me as well, as that, you know, the difference between religion and spirituality is that in religions, they kind of dictate to you a belief, a mental belief, a story of how it all is in the universe. So you can fit into their community, whereas spirituality is really about recognizing the majesty and splendor of existence in the present moment.
Buddhism is very, very, I've heard Alan Watts put it, Buddhism is Hinduism stripped for its necessities.
Yeah.
Buddhism is the literal, as the words are as close to it, the point as it can be in literature, you know what I mean? And
yes,
it's describing the very action of things, the very fundamental happening of things, you know. And yes, they openly tell you, don't just believe what I'm saying because you like the look of this way of thinking. Put it to the test, sit down, don't go out into the woods, go and sit in your room and look in and really see if you can see what they're talking about, and put it to the test. Logic, use your thinking mind to outwit itself. Heavily debate the spiritual teachings, you know?
Yes.
And, you know, you realize when you have the feeling that you've learned or understood something revolved around Buddhism, it's this feeling, it's more so this feeling that you've remembered an essential way of how things are. It's not that you've learned this new thing. It's that you've become aware of something that's always been going on that you forgot about. And it's more like this, oh, no shit, that's right. That's right. He was right. And you have this egoic feeling that he's telling the truth, guys. Buddhism, he's right. You know, just because you had this insight into the wisdom that he was speaking and that whole thing was speaking about, you know?
Yeah, that definitely points to the seeing of Buddha nature, which is a term I heard used to describe it very recently by Jack Cornfield, I think. And it's a very beautiful realization because it's a kind of way of understanding what's happening really with our life situation and what's happening in the universe. I think that there's there's a place inside each and every one of us that really knows what's happening and understands that our situation of life in the universe is completely harmonious and perfect. um our minds have a way of telling stories and trying to cover that up, and we can get completely and totally lost in our minds. But there's something about Buddhism which is a beautiful way of directing you to that place inside of yourself through the practice of meditation, where it helps you see that once again. And it makes me think of I listen to, I'm sure you've heard the podcaster Sam Harris before.
Yes,
Who
I think I have heard
he
of him.
Yeah, he's been another really interesting figure I've heard listen to about this subject. And this is a really good metaphor for understanding what Buddhism is pointing you towards. It's not like giving specific details, but he said a really good Buddhist teacher will be able to teach you to see something that is not immediately and clearly obvious. So take, for example, you're standing in a room or a building and you're looking through the window, and but the goal of what you're trying to see is your own reflection in the window. But that might not be immediately obvious because you'll just be looking outside the window. And I'm looking at my window here as if if you can see it. You might be looking outside the window and you'll say, I don't get it. I see trees, I see grass, what's the point? And then the Buddhist meditation teacher would say, direct your attention to the glass on the window. You say, okay, now direct your attention to the reflection on the glass in the window. And then at that point, you may see the insight that the whole tradition is trying to point you towards.
Zen talks a lot
Yes.
about satori, which is sudden enlightenment, and that's what Zen is all about. And I've read some very, very moving stories and little really stories of Zen associated things. And
Yeah, there's some really interesting stories and riddles in the Zen tradition. It's been really fascinating listening to Alan Watts talk about it and share some of his stories. And I've in fact memorized a couple, but I'm sure you've heard a lot of the different koans they use.
yes, that's what I was actually just going to speak about. And I remember what I was going to say a moment ago. Another analogy towards the seeing something different is, when you're looking at the two vases and you don't see the faces in there. And then all of a sudden the guru directs you to see the faces in there that were essentially didn't even exist prior to him pointing it out. And
Yes.
I can also think of when you're sitting there whipping a cigarette or a sparkler in a circle, in a whipping motion in a dark room, and you see this circle. It might not be apparent to you that it's a circle because you think you're whipping this thing around, but there is this clear circle held in space, you know what I mean? And it might not be obvious to pick that out, but that very well is a circle all of a sudden just done by you spinning this thing around.
Yes.
But no, Zen koans like hold on, I'm trying to think of one that was that really was beautiful.
Like What is the sound of one hand clapping?
Yeah, right. Or like yeah, like I can share one real quick with Ram Dass. You might know this one. Um, uh, he had this one koan from his master, and it was, how does a Buddha know his true nature through the sound of a cricket? And Ram Dass was giving all these different answers, and every time he would give an answer to the master would say, "Oh, Ram Dass, you don't understand yet. You need to do more work. You need to focus more." And Ram Dass started to get so fed up because it had been like a whole week that he was working on this one koan that he couldn't figure out, you know? And he said it was like the 5th or the 6th day or something, and he was so fed up with the whole situation. And he went in, because he had to go in every day. He went into his master, and his master, like normal, every morning said, "Oh, Ram Dass, how does a Buddha know his nature, his true nature, through the sound of a cricket?" And Ram Dass said he was just so done with the bullshit that instead of trying to answer the master's koan, he just said, "Good morning, Roshi," like being human, like, let's cut the bullshit. "Good morning, Roshi. It's nice to see you." And the master says, "Oh, Ram Dass, I see you are beginning to see into your true Buddha nature." And I just thought that was such a fucking beautiful, the fact that that's what the master was looking for, was that raw, let's cut the bullshit, you know, here it is type thing. You know what I mean? It's right now.
Yeah,
And like,
that's really beautiful. And I think that kind of points to a reality that Buddhism is trying to point you towards, is that Buddha nature and the way things are is not an idea. It's not something that we can explicitly tell each other so that way we would understand.
Here's another short story from a disciple that was talking to Ramakrishna, who is another individual that I haven't mentioned yet, that I've seen and heard some pretty wise, astounding things on his part. But the disciple was asking Ramakrishna, "Ramakrishna, my mind is impure. How do I cleanse my mind?" And Ramakrishna said, "Bring your mind forth and I will cleanse it." And the disciple took a moment and then said, "When I look for my mind, I can't find it." And Ramakrishna said, "There, it's been cleansed." And the depth, I've known this story for 2 years or so now, but literally just a month or two ago, I realized the depth in it. Ramakrishna told him, "Bring your mind forth and I will cleanse your mind." And the disciple, not truly understanding the nature of mind, when he said that, revealed his mind to Ramakrishna. He brought his mind forth by thinking in his mind, when I look for my mind, I can't find it. That was him unconsciously bringing his mind forth. So therefore, Ramakrishna said, "There, it's cleansed. I've cleansed your mind." And I just thought that was like, that's the level of, it's not words, it's the way things are. It's the literal happening of how you're being. You know what I mean?
That's a really beautiful interpretation. I really like the way you interpreted that. The way I used to interpret that story in particular was that the mind itself does not really exist, so there's nothing to pacify at all. And I don't.
That's just I don't
know.
As grand.
Yeah. But I don't know if I agree with that anymore, because there very clearly is a mind that we utilize all the time.
Yeah, and it's the thing that is looking for the thing. It's the trap. When you're face to face with a guru, supposedly everything I've learned about, he knows where you are. He knows where you are. And he's gonna act in certain ways, that are completely played out to make you awaken, to make you realize your own nature. And, to share more about how Zen works and the sneakiness of it. Alan Watts shared this because he proclaims himself to be somebody that reveals the guru and the master's secrets. He reveals their tricks, and he kind of does to an extent, where you'll face this individual and think you know what they're all about. But in Zen, when somebody asks you a really deep question, you respond with something simple and mundane. And when somebody asks you something very mundane and simple, you respond with something incredibly profound. Like, for example, a disciple would ask a Zen master, what is the true nature of existence, or something like that. And the master would say, I had rice for breakfast this morning. And then, at dinner or something, one of the disciples would ask the master, hey, can you pass me a fork? And the master would say, who's asking? And it's this matter of snapping you into this sort of opposite, like a sudden realization type thing where you get it,
Yeah.
Like just one more story. I'll stop with it after this, because I could just go on. One disciple asked a Zen master, what is the nature of existence, or something like that, one of those really deep questions. And the master walked him out to the bamboo and told him, notice how some of the bamboo is tall and some of the bamboo is short. And that enlightened the disciple. That's something that at least I don't conceptually understand. You know what I mean? But that's the way the shit works, man. It's so obvious, but in the background, in the periphery.
These stories are a really beautiful way. I always kind of thought of Zen as the shortcut method for Buddhism, and I'm only half educated on this. I've only listened to a couple speak. So take my word with a grain of salt. This is somebody who's half educated, giving my personal opinion on what this looks like. But Zen definitely looks like the shortcut method. It's like Buddhism was introduced to the Eastern people who were familiar with Taoism, and they saw into what it was about, and they said, okay, how can we get here more quickly instead of going through all these long meditations and whatnot? And so they developed these stories as a way. It's not a surefire guaranteed way, because a lot of people still won't get the stories, but occasionally when somebody hears one of those stories or those riddles, then it'll snap them into this realization very suddenly. And it makes me think, I'm going to share one koan that I learned and memorized from Alan Watts. Well, that's the source I learned it from. He probably didn't actually write it, but he said that there was once a man came to visit his Zen master with a problem, and he said, oh master, I have a problem for you. Can you please help me? And he said, there was once a man who carried a goose in a bottle. And one day the goose grew so large that I could no longer easily fit through the mouth of the bottle. And the man wanted to get the goose out of the bottle without harming the goose or without breaking the bottle. And so how does this man get the goose out of the bottle? And so he asked the master this, and instead of answering the question, the master changed the subject entirely. He said, oh, it's lovely weather we're having. It's a nice day. How is the walk over here? And I continued on in pleasant conversation like this. And then the original man figured that he wasn't going to get an answer to his question. So he got up and he started walking towards the door to leave. And just as he was opening the door, the master called out to him. He said, oh, excuse me. Man turns around and the master says, there, it's out.
Yeah, right.
And,
oh my God, dude. What miracle stories, bro.
Yeah, I think, and there's I will let people think about that for as long as they want. But the way I interpreted that story was to mean that when you come to a Zen master, people usually ask them questions about life. How do I stop suffering? How do I properly live? What is the fundamental meaning of Buddhism? And the mind tends to create problems, and when it creates a problem out of life, it's an impossible and insoluble problem, much like the situation of a goose being in a bottle. And
Yeah, right.
so the answer to that is that it's not even a problem in the first place. And when you stop thinking about it and worrying about it, then the problem is solved. Not because well, not necessarily the problem was solved, but the very idea that you even had a problem was completely removed.
The Indian and Asian gurus are just the things they do. We could make an entire podcast about the miraculous things that they've done and the incredibly profound wisdom underlying what they're doing in every little thing they're doing, like just the idea that when there's a group of like 10, 15, 20 people hanging out around Neem Karoli Baba or Maharajji, everybody is under the impression that he's looking at them. He's looking at everybody, and it's like, what do you make of that? Or the idea, one story of a disciple who knew of Maharajji's powers. He wanted to see Maharajji in particular be in two places at once. And he told Maharajji to perform this. And Maharajji told him no for a few days. And then one day they were all having darshan, hanging out with the guru. And Maharajji told that one guy, go out into the hall and see what's happening for me. So the guy alone goes out into the hallway. And this is one of the stories in the book. The guy says there was like 4 or 5 doors, and Maharajji was coming out of every single one simultaneously.
Whoa.
Yeah, man. It's like, and the idea that certain people need to be shown miracles at certain times in their life. If you go looking for a miracle, you're probably not going to get one. But it's the people that need a miraculous thing to happen that will have that miraculous thing happen. You know what I mean?
I see. Yeah, he's a really interesting figure. I actually have his book here. I've been reading this recently. It's been my nighttime routine. I believe we talked about this before.
Yes, sir.
This is A Miracle of Love, the book by Ram Dass about his guru Maharajji. It's a collection of various miracle stories that were told
by many.
Yes, I am very skeptical about that kind of like mystical ability, and I'm the kind of person where I'm going to need to see it for myself in order to attest to its truth or untruth. But there have been so many different people attesting to this particular being manifesting miracles constantly of the type that like Jesus would perform. And Ram Dass, he was not a dumb guy. He was before he became Ram Dass, he was like a clinical, I believe he was a PhD psychologist who actually treated patients and taught university courses at some Ivy League.
Freudian psychology.
Yeah.
Yep.
And so for a person of that educational stature to attest to these kinds of miracles, I am very inclined to take his word for it, which means that the Hindus and the Eastern spiritual people, they really figured out something that's really deep. And we should listen to them and take what knowledge and information we can.
And the idea of just different planes of consciousness, and I'm gonna stop with the
Yes.
stories here, but
Mm.
this one story of Ram Dass was just doing his thing, doing lectures in America, and this woman kept calling Ram Dass saying, "There's this lady that's living with me, and she'd really like to meet you. I think you should meet her." And Ram Dass was saying he just didn't want to meet anybody. He wasn't in the mood to go and see anybody. And this kept going for a whole week or so. This woman calling him saying, "Ram Dass, I really think you should come see this lady." And Ram Dass was like, "No, I don't want to come see this lady." And then one day the lady shows up at where Ram Dass was staying and says, "Ram Dass, I really think you should come see this lady." And the lady had that lady that Ram Dass was supposed to go see on the phone with her. And
Mm.
the lady on the phone said, tell him his guru is in my basement and won't leave me alone. Maharajji. And
Mm.
he had been dead for about a year. So now Maharajji, now Ram Dass was immediately intrigued with this woman.
Mm.
And when he went to the house, it was this young woman who I feel like he essentially described to look like a hooker, was lost in samadhi, sitting in a full lotus, eyes rolled back, no heartbeat, no pulse. And eventually she came down to this plane and told Ram Dass, after some vulgar statements towards him, told Ram Dass, "Does that fat naked old man over there belong to you?" Ram Dass looked over and it was just a blanket, you know, and just what the hell is going on?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. I think the miracle stories in particular are told to open our minds up to the fact that whatever is happening in the wider scheme of the universe is far greater than and far beyond our ability to comprehend. Um, yeah.
Hold on. I'm gonna go to the bathroom real quick, and then I'm gonna dive into this is my second point, personal
Mhm.
changes in perspectives of things based around like what I got listed here is self, ego, and awareness. Like, think about how you
Mm.
think right now and how incredibly influenced that is by these teachings and things we have learned intellectually over time, and
Mm.
that's what I'm going to share is just basically how I think about things because of all the stuff that I've associated with myself with. But I'm gonna go to the bathroom real quick, and
Okay.
I will be right back.
I will be right back as well. Yeah, I'm going to take a short restroom break here. If you're interested in jumping ahead to whenever we come back, I'll leave a timestamp in the video description.
I just want to say thank you guys so much for watching. These collabs are a lot of fun to just sit and talk with another like-minded individual and just share what we're thinking, what we've been going through in life. And if you sit and watch these whole things, I just want to say thank you very much. These are really, really fun to make. But while we're in this break, I'm gonna go make a cup of coffee real quick, and I'll be right back.
think this lighting looks a lot better. I just kind of did something to make my face appear a little brighter here.
Yo.
Hello, sir. Welcome back.
What's up, man?
Alrighty.
You just looked like you had no arms.
What's that?
You just looked like you had no arms for a second.
Yeah, I'm like stretching them behind my back. That's kind of funny. I'm just a
You're just a little.
I'm a fucking quadriplegic or something.
What's up, Shaman Tim?
Yeah, man.
But no, to get
all right.
To get into
there was actually
yeah. What's up?
I'm sorry, I'm going to butt in here, but there was actually something I did want to discuss very briefly before I forget about it, because if I don't mention it now, I'm going to totally forget about it. And that is how exactly we implement these practices and teachings in what we've learned into our life. Because I find the act of learning about spirituality and about the self to be fun and entertaining, but I find it to be a different task altogether for it to take effect in how you live your life.
Right.
So do you have any thoughts about this?
Yes, and that itself goes through all my different points I have here in the things that we've learned are only just things you've learned until you begin to implement them into your life. And yeah, I guess to share on that, how directly to implement it into your life. You can't force it. It's not something that your ego does. It's really the act of things being undone in you, in which your ego will begin to think you're awakening, you're enlightening, you're growing, you're becoming more awakened, but that in itself will stagnate the process more so than it already is. But I think it's a very slow moving process. You can't just read something and be enlightened, or you can't just take a psychedelic and be enlightened. It's something that is worked out, ironed out into life itself, and if you don't continue to do integral work and introspection into your own mind, you're going to go back to your habitual ways of living. And you'll consider what you were getting into just a bunch of bullshit. It wasn't real. This is more important, what I'm doing now. But there's also the possibility that you grow a spiritual ego because you think you're integrating spiritual wisdom so well. And you think to yourself, you suppose that you're very wise. You're this very wise individual. And as much literature and philosophy as you still think you are this person that is wise and smart and better, and that is the thing that is over our whole lives burning out, dying down, calming down. And, it's really a process of learning the structural outline of these philosophies, getting them in your head, learning what they're about, and then living your life through it, and it's hard to describe how to do this, man, because when I describe how to do it, I'm basically describing an individual that is trying to force awakening because he thinks that's what he wants. And that's not how the awakening takes place. The awakening takes place in my opinion, of itself, completely aside from the individual that's awakening. It's something that is just running its course, and you can feel when you are learning. And, you know, that's what I want to touch on a bit, is when you look at how your mind thinks about life, death, society, who you think you are, what you think the point of all this is, look at how influenced that is by everything you've learned. You're a completely different person. You know, we're completely different people through these things. And it's because we've been associated with it for, you know, 5 years now. I mean, in my experience, it's something I've been pounding into my head for 5 years, working with for 5 years. And it's become a neuronal way of looking at the world. And I think that's the idea of integrating, is being with it so long that you begin to actually see it. And at that point, you no longer have to put any sort of effort into seeing it, because it's just how it is. You don't put effort into seeing and hearing and feeling and thinking unless you're caught up in your ego. And these teachings become the same way. It's just completely obvious.
Yes.
It's completely obvious that we are all one.
It still is kind of like something you have to cultivate in yourself to get that insight and that understanding, you know, just in the same way that you would tend a garden.
And in a very complex way, you can convince yourself you understand. And that's kind of what we were talking about earlier with Sadhguru. If somebody has the vernacular that you're looking to hear, that's all you need. They could be a murderer. They could be a murderer. But if they're speaking spiritual words, which really aren't that easy to associate with and learn, they're going to be conveying what you're looking for, you know, but it'll be lacking the truth and the essence of what's going on. And that's the difference between somebody that thinks they know and somebody that knows, you know. When you think you know, you want to teach everybody. And that's the Buddha and Bodhisattva predicament, is shit, I've awakened, I need to teach everybody else. And then you got the Buddha that's like, I'm awakened, okay. You know, in a very, if you know what I'm saying, you know, like that just essence of letting go and being, you know.
Yes. But there's still something to be said for the path of teaching, because, you know, there still needs to be teachers, and they're immensely helpful to people who are trying to learn. And I think Siddhartha the Buddha was in a very interesting situation, because he was one of at least historically, as far as we can tell, like one of the first people that figured it out, you know, like what the truth is and how to live a good life. So
that's what gets me, though. I mean, and I must just not understand history, but like, wasn't Hinduism going on for a very long time prior to Siddhartha's journey?
Yes.
And weren't there ascetics and monks and awakened and enlightened individuals just in different forms, you know?
There were, yes. Siddhartha the Buddha, he started a new tradition altogether. And I am no expert on this, so take my words with a grain of salt. I'm, like I said, half educated. I've listened to a traditional Hindu Advaita Vedanta teacher make comparisons between Buddhism and the traditional Hindu knowledge. And he said that they're kind of different in a lot of different ways. And that Siddhartha the Buddha, he kind of rejected a lot of the more traditional teachings of the Hindu tradition. And so that's why it's considered its own separate thing. But he did take a lot of ideas from the tradition. It's not like he abandoned it altogether.
Right.
but yeah, other than that, he was apparently an incredibly profound and effective teacher who understood something something good that everybody else wanted.
He discovered the middle way, bro.
Mm.
You ever realize that if you have a long, heavy object, if you hold it in the center, it feels weightless? You know,
Absolutely.
And that whole thing. Just this idea of the middle way. That's what he was all about.
I've heard another analysis before saying that in the Buddha's time, the other practitioners of people in the way became overly emphasized in asceticism. Like going on incredibly long fasts that were probably more than what was necessary to get any kind of benefit.
Not eating, not
doing torturous things to their body, staying awake all the time, getting like 30 minutes of sleep a night.
Yeah.
And
so realized like that shit's just making me weak.
Exactly. And it wasn't until after he gave up those ascetic practices that he attained knowledge, that he attained Buddhahood and knowledge of the middle path and everything. But so to me, Buddhism in particular and spirituality is a really interesting question of trying to implement it into our lives. And I think this is kind of like a multi-part process. There is like some kind of spiritual understanding that you cultivate by doing meditation and by learning from teachers who have walked the path before. But I also find Buddhism to be very, very practical in terms of how to live our lives. And through the Eightfold Path in particular, it's not a way that we're supposed to live, but it really is kind of like a prescription for happiness and living well. And so I wrote down the list here because I can never remember the entirety of the Eightfold Path. I'm an awful Buddhist, but some of them include right understanding. What was I talking about 30 seconds before? Having the right spiritual understanding, right intention, having that intention to practice out the doctrine in your daily life, right speech, right livelihood, right action, right effort, right mindfulness or meditation, and right concentration or samadhi. And these are all different kind of various subjects where I try to keep them in mind and apply them to my life as I'm living it out. And so let me just go ahead and share a little bit about what I've been up to lately in terms of my own personal practice in this regard. One of the Buddhist doctrines is metta, or loving kindness, and really embodying that principle in yourself and trying to establish that feeling towards all other living beings and all other people around you. And I've been trying to manifest this in various different ways by being kind to everybody I meet and trying to really hold that intentionality and that presence of kindness and love and acceptance. And when you practice this, you really become some kind of like radiant beacon that touches the lives of people around you. And I've known people who embody this quality who have touched my life and have touched many other people's lives. And that's one of the ways that Buddhism can be immediately practical in the way you live your day-to-day life. It's just one example among many. There are
I know. I'm over here thinking about. I'm over here thinking about. Yeah, and I'd like to share a little bit of it, but
the way I promise I'm gonna stop talking very soon. But I just wanted to say before I forget that the way I really kind of see it is that you can't forget to neglect your human life, because the human life is something that is sacred and that should be honored. And that's something that all of our various teachers have tried to teach us about at some point. You know, Ram Dass, he said in one of his lectures somewhere that you should honor your incarnation. And in the Bible, Jesus says that you should treat your own body as the temple. And so there's a kind of spirituality where you can get lost in the ideas, and there's a different kind of spirituality where you can use the ideas and also live well. Because if you neglect your human life and your human body, there's going to be suffering that arises as a consequence of that.
The ideas and the notions and concepts of all this spirituality represent and point to how things are fundamentally, you know what I mean? How the mind is functioning, how you think you're this separate individual with a time span, and how you think all this stuff is important and matters, and how scared you are and how full of desire you are. You know, that's the stuff they're bringing to awareness. Give me a moment here to just think about this.
Absolutely, man.
See, and this is what kind of brings me into personal philosophies, that we live out of a illusory phantom character. And yeah, like I said, this is going to be examples of how these teachings have personally shifted how I feel about things. Who I think I am is nothing more than that. Who I am thinking I am. And thoughts do not embody the entire universe. Thoughts only represent themselves as such, as thoughts. And our identity and our belief systems and perspective of the entire world resides in thought. And it's gotten to the point where we have forgotten about this, our body, our true self, which is this entire matrix of happening. And we're lost in our thinking minds. And our thinking mind is what thinks it's outwitted that guy and isn't as smart as that guy. And you know what I mean? Like, who you are is underlying everything you've been thinking this whole time. And returning to who you are is returning to what's been happening this whole time. You can start with your own body, you know, and realize that your body is this entire environment, this entire thing. It's completely in it. There are no edges to self. There are no edges and boundaries in awareness. It's an all-pervasive, infinite form of awareness that's coming off in all these different directions. And because of the thoughts, the housers, the points of this awareness is thinking that they're this person and they live and they're alive and this is what it is and this is what I'm doing and this is what should be happening, you know. And the thinking mind has been derailed from the nature of being, from the nature of how we are. You wake up every day and you live your whole day thinking about all this shit, about all these different things. At least I do, you know what I mean? I can't vouch for everybody, but like, yeah, that's my philosophies of self have drastically changed. You know, what is self? What is I? That kind of stuff. It's all just stories until you really sit and look into it. And this is where I could bring in talk about psychedelics, because psychedelics have been the grounds where I've had ego death experiences, where I see deeply, deeply, infinitely into the nature of existence and see the phantom self that I've been living as. And it's just all these things we've been talking about up until this point. That's what they're talking about, is these realizations in real-time experience that no longer seem like thoughts, but seem like something that's happening. An event is taking place, you know? It's very, very, very far out stuff. And
yeah,
I
agree with you.
Yeah, I see why they
100%.
say things like you don't exist. Who you are doesn't exist. Who you think you are exists, but that's not who you are, you know? Or I guess I could say who you are exists, but who you think you are doesn't. The person you've made yourself out to be, down to the roots of thinking you're a human being on planet Earth, are a perception, a thought, an imaginatory thing laid onto this, in nature, formless experience.
Let's see. That's really beautiful, and that lines up with a lot of other teachings I've received. So personally, in my understanding, I think that there is a self, that there is a true deep self to all of us, but there is kind of a misunderstanding, because it's not that the self is contained within the human and it's not contained within the mind. The human and the mind is part of what the self is, but it's not the primary thing that the self is. And something that the Buddha taught us, well, I mean, this fact has been kind of obvious, but this is the fact of impermanence of all things. Look around. We are born and we die and we pass away. And you should realize that this body and this mind are impermanent. They're subject to change and to decay.
Look at the impermanence of each breath and thought.
Yes. And you should understand that what it is that you are cannot be the body and mind only, because it's a part of what you are, and it's a part of what's happening right now. But I forgot what I was going to say. My mind just totally went blank.
This is where I ask
yes.
you, whose mind? Whose mind just went blank?
That's a really good question. I would be inclined to say the human's mind went blank.
This
it's kind of a witty answer.
This life form right here forgot what it was going to say. And the shit is so deep, bro, that you begin to realize, you begin to see that the very words you're using are not it. Everything I'm saying right now is a bunch of sounds that you're picking up, all these signals of what it means. And dude,
that's a really trippy one.
We're speaking aside from the point. We're speaking in form and in concept. But this thing we're talking about is not an intellectual concept. This thing is life itself, and you can only describe things so many times and in so many certain ways, and that's why they say the very staple fundamental things like it's all one, you don't exist, life or death is an illusion, or what, all this weird wacky shit they say is the bottom line vocabulary language that is able to even slightly convey what they are aware of,
Yes. And I find that kind of language to be kind of specifically structured to kind of undo the languaging and the logic that's embedded into our brains about the ideas of reality. Because we get so caught up in the idea of thinking that we are this human. And when somebody says you don't exist, that's a direct challenge to that line of reasoning. And it has the capacity to undo it and bring you out the other side to a different realization.
You don't exist is a good one. That's something I worried about a lot and was all worked up about, is like, who am I? Who am I? And you realize, or at least I've realized, that people don't do work on themselves. People don't look into the nature of themselves, and I go out into public and I see these individuals that are scared like me and jealous like me and angry like me and trying to put on this front of being cool and important like me. And I see that they haven't done this introspection. I feel, I walk around thinking to myself, worried my ego is going to lash out again. Aware of, I don't want to feel cool. I don't want to feel important. I don't want to feel popular. I don't want to feel, all these ways that people are acting around me. And it creates this alienation, like doing all this work, looking into yourself. You just see, you see the trap all around you. You see the suffering all around you. And it's the exact same suffering that you've been resolving in yourself. And you're trying to tell all these people around you, look in, work, wake up, work on yourself, realize you exist, realize that you think this is who you are and this is how it all is, and that's why you're suffering in the first place. Realize it. And you're trying to force these realizations that are not words, that are not concepts, to people through your words and through your actions, and I feel like you can't force it. You can't force it. Spirituality isn't something that you can force. Integrating it into your life, it's good to try to, but it does it of itself. You either get it or you don't. You either laugh at a joke or you don't. You don't practice on laughing at jokes. It's either funny as hell and you get it, or it's just, oh, yeah, right. And it's this very vague and not so literal of a belief, but there's a difference when you get that rush and that awakening of, where everything melts, everything dissolves, all concepts and boundaries disappear, and it's all eternal and it's all one, and it's so loving and it's so joyous, and you've been leaving it alone for so long, and you're so silly and you're so ignorant,
It's been sitting right here this whole time.
Yeah. But yeah, whatever I've just been going off about is a lot of my personal philosophies and how I carry myself when I walk around, and stuff like that.
I see. Yeah, it's a very rare thing for a human to be drawn to the spiritual path, and it's even more rare for somebody who's been drawn to that path to fully exemplify that teaching or to really deeply get it.
I feel like most of the people that truly get it don't talk about it.
Yeah, absolutely.
And
what does it say in the Tao Te Ching? those
The
who
first line.
it's one of the first lines.
Yeah,
Or,
dude.
those who
The
know.
Tao that can be spoken is not the eternal Tao.
Yeah.
Those
Name
who
that can
speak
be
do not
named. It's
know.
not the eternal
Those who-
name. Those who talk do not know, and those who know do not talk.
And yet he said that.
Yes.
Yeah, it's so funny and
It's a really
fun.
deep, trippy mind fuck, really. Yeah, man.
I guess this isn't even a point I have. It's just really a point of talking. But what are your thoughts on New Age spirituality and what we're talking about right now? Ancient, archaic mysticism. What do you see it around you? Do you see New Age around you? How would you define New Age spirituality? And do you think it's rampant?
So I have a character flaw, and that is that I tend to live under a rock. I don't really pay too much attention to what society is doing. I tend to isolate myself. I think I kind of understand what you mean by New Age spirituality, but let me go ahead and ask you, what exactly do you mean by New Age spirituality?
Well, I see people that are just picking up on spiritual philosophies or going and taking psychedelics or associating themselves with these very mystical things as a form of nurturing. What's up?
I'm sorry. You can go ahead.
No, you're good. It's another hobby. They might as well be playing baseball. It's like
are
it's
you
just
talking?
It's just another ego game. They're not really. They're not really looking. They're not really about it. They want to be about it, but it's just another interest. It's another hobby. It's another thing to look into and see if you like it and see if you're about it, and then go on to the next thing. It's just another thing type. That's the feel to it, that like it's normalizing it and making it out to be this fatty kind of get spiritual today, like it's just weird,
I think I kind of get it. The thing that comes to mind when I think of the term New Age spirituality is kind of associated with more of like the mystical hobbies, I guess, like palm reading, feeling energies, energy
like
readings,
Reiki, tarot reading, working with
tarot
crystals.
cards, crystals.
See, that's a lot of what my mom is associated with, and it's beautiful because every Sunday we go over, and me and my brother and my mom go upstairs in her room, and we talk and smoke, and she is so aware of how we are and feels like, oh shit, they're gonna get at me for how materialistic I am, and oh no, my fake methods that aren't as real as my kids' methods, and you know what I mean. It's funny. It's completely it's completely a tangible and present thing that she's using a different vehicle, and she's someone to an extent that I would consider new agey, because just to the biased perspective I have, that it's not associated with these ancient fundamental truths. It's more so etheric, ghostly, astral, not in your face, not happening in the now unless it's associated with synchronicity and you know what I mean, like surroundings lining up, things like that. It seems like this it's working with divinity. It's completely aware of divinity, but it's not taking into consideration where it's coming from, and it's just creating more forms of divinity and creating more rituals and more ceremonies and more ways of thinking that are divine. And it's not taking into consideration the root of it all, which is where you are, where you're resting. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I find a lot of those new age spiritual things to kind of be really a kind of like distraction, like a mind game of sorts, and uh not really exposing you to the depth of what these teachings are supposed to, this realization of these teachings are supposed to bring you to. I don't know if there's a better way I could have worded that, but like as far as like the new age stuff goes, like I don't claim to like know everything for certain. I'm strongly skeptical, but there might be like an energy thing to crystals or like tarot cards or something like that. And I've got to tell you, I have actually sat down with a person before who had a deck of tarot cards, and we went through and we tried to do the tarot reading. I was trying to be open to it, but the way it seemed to me was that any one of those cards could have been applicable to your life. And so it literally doesn't matter which one you pull, because it's all a matter of your own interpretation anyway. It's kind of like pulling fortune cookies.
That's the idea with astrology as well, and why I don't really associate with that, because all 12 zodiacs are present in me right now. And because I was born in February, my Pisces traits are going to be what I'm focused on and what I feel make out myself. You know what I mean? And Ram Dass talks about channels of consciousness. It's like a little radio switch, and you're switching to different levels. And he's like, on one level, he's looking at the crowd and he says, I see a bunch of different people. I see men, women, and elderly people and younger people, and you're all wearing different clothes, and you all have this different story, and you're all here listening to me, seeking spiritual wisdom. And he says, and then I turn that switch one channel, and now there's only one person in the room. Or no, there's only two people in the room, self and other. Everything besides Ram Dass is other, and here he is as the self. And then he switches the knob again, and now there's only one. We're all one awareness.
Yes.
And then he switches it again, and now there's only 12 people, and those are the zodiacs. There's only 12 people that exist, and just tons of different variations of them. And then he says he turns the channel again, and then nobody exists. There is nobody in the first place, and it's all nothing to begin with.
That's really interesting. That's a really interesting description. I think I don't know. In my case, I really need to like see it for myself to accept it as like a reality. So if like I'm not saying it's not possible at all. I'm saying that like as it stands right now, I don't have sufficient evidence for myself to like commit myself to asserting that like this is a reality in the universe.
What specifically?
In terms of like that some of the more new age spiritual stuff like astral travel or this zodiac signs, I just forgot the name, astrology, Reiki readings, tarot cards, energy crystals,
psychics,
like
mediums.
Like if somebody could show me clearly and evidently without a doubt that there's some merit to these things, then I'll change my mind 100%. But as it stands right now, I've lived quite a while and I have yet to see any evidence whatsoever for these things.
The most miraculous things I've ever seen have been while I was high on psychedelic drugs. That's been the most, and I feel like that's something we can talk about here in a moment. But really, what all this new age stuff is trying to do is trying to really just assert and prove that magic is real. And that's really it. Not how to like in English writing, the so what, the now what. You've made your point, so what? Magic is real, so what? What about it? And that's where I feel new age, the
Yeah,
psychics, mediums,
kind of,
the Reiki readers, the tarot readings, the crystals,
yeah, kind of
the
falls
astrology.
short of the goal.
Yeah, it's just like I said, it just seems like it's trying to prove a point, and that's it. There's no sense of I don't know. It seems like it's missing something, in my opinion. That's my
Yeah.
egoic opinion. Everything I've associated myself with, I just don't find myself using. I mean, I don't use crystals. I don't use cards and stuff like that. I do every now and then use mala beads or a singing bowl or incense, but for, I guess we could say, different reasons. You know, it's like it's not about manifesting what I want in life. It's not about proving that gods are real. It's not about bettering. It's not even about bettering myself. It's about returning to the simplicity and the vibrating existence that is. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Realizing just the astonishing beauty of our own existence in the present moment.
Yeah, for sure.
That's a beautiful gift that spirituality is supposed to point us towards, not kind of like these, let me say, magic tricks, for lack of a better idea on my part. But yeah, and I say all those kinds of things as a person that has had incredibly deep psychedelic experiences, like and so I guess we could use this as an opportunity to segment into that, because psychedelics are kind of like spiritual powerhouses as far as lessons go. And instead of me talking my head off, let me go ahead and ask you then. So how exactly have psychedelics influenced your journey in spirituality?
Well, first of all, let's just say that psychedelics are the most intimidating factor in regards to spirituality to me. Because they have shown me the power of life, the power of consciousness, the power of the mind, to indescribable degrees of insanity. And I guess, what was your question directly? What about psychedelics has helped me spiritually?
Yes. Wasn't a very direct question. It's more like a general observation.
I can say that if I were to have gone into psychedelics, I mean, without any background of interest or awareness or focus, I probably wouldn't have gotten anything out of it. I would have thought I was really high. But because I went into psychedelics with a subtle background of, this is something mysterious, this is something we don't know about, this is something that people don't want others doing because it makes them realize all these things. There was this little background thing in there. And when I went into the psychedelics, I saw it real time. I saw, oh my God, no wonder everybody became hippies. Holy shit, there's where tie-dye came from. Oh my God, no wonder they don't believe in the government. Holy shit, I see why they say I don't exist. Damn, I really do feel like I am this and nothing else, you know? And just these deep, incredible experiences of seeing how your mind works and seeing how you've been living as this gross, selfish character that really holds no more reality than a passing thought, you know? And it's mind-blowing. And another very, very large spiritual factor in regards to psychedelics, in my opinion, I think people don't take into consideration enough the hallucinations. People act like it's evil. People act like hallucinating is normal. But anytime I've been high enough on psychedelics that I was having visual hallucinations, and not just subtle stuff, but like LSD breathing and morphing geometry and details. And you've seen that. That's not fucking normal, dude. That
Nope.
is not, that is not, that shouldn't even be possible. That shouldn't even be possible. People take these drugs and look right past it. Like, holy shit, everything looks so weird. But dude, you take a psychedelic and you sit and look, what's happening visually is fucking impossible. It is, nothing can describe it. It's nothing that's ever been described. It's not an object. It's an alteration. It's a distortion. It's a fucking, hallucinations alone are enough for me to understand that psychedelics are incredibly powerful spiritual tools.
Absolutely.
That's something I think, like, when people take psychedelics and tell me they didn't get anything spiritual out of it, it's like, were you blinded by hallucinations? You need to be fucking seeing crazy shit, you know, and you need to be tripping balls, and it's right there happening for it to be surreal, you know? And it's just, like I said, psychedelics are very intimidating to me because of the power they have of liquefying my mind and my senses. And they are the most beautiful things I have ever seen, the most terrifying things I've ever seen, the most wise things I have ever seen and witnessed. I can't really describe why psychedelics are spiritual, you know, but I can say that it's good to have a intellectual background going into it, to really observe and analyze the experience and make something out of it, you know, and don't try to force an awakening while you're tripping, you know, like,
yes,
I don't know, like, it's the joke thing, it's the belly laugh. You're either gonna see the craziness or you're not. It was either just that was a crazy drug experience, or you realize that something
sacred just happened.
Yeah, dude. Yeah, something sacred just happened. Yeah, exactly.
And that really speaks to the power of the hallucinations, because they have a really peculiar way of expanding our awareness and our experiencing beyond its ordinary boundaries. And I speak about this kind of a little bit in my video where I talked about DMT hyperspace and extra dimensional space. And that's a prime example, because all of a sudden you're in this new different reality that has entirely different qualities from the one you've been living in for however many years you've been alive. And yeah, those visions, those realizations are supposed to open you up to the fact that within this experience, when we pair this psychedelic with our human organism, there's something really peculiar and sacred happening in that experience.
Have you noticed that it's incredibly familiar and feels like home?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And like you've been there.
I will say that for DMT in particular, yes, or for like tryptamine like substances. LSD seems like a different beast to me. But I will make a quick mention that about 2 months ago, I had an LSD trip, and it was the most LSD I'd ever taken in a single sitting. And I've been really deep before, but this one sent me deep into hyperspace, and it kind of removed my mind's ability to make sense of things. And I thought I was going insane. And I got the distinct sensation that it felt like my consciousness was like leaving my body at one point. And I don't really know what to make of that. I'll just say it was really bizarre, and that shit goes really fucking deep.
What were the hallucinations like?
I'm not really too sure how to describe it. It was very geometric. It's very abstract, geometric. It was similar to what DMT hyperspace was.
Wow. Were you having closed-eyed visuals?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
I've never, I mean, I have had closed-eyed visuals on LSD before, but nothing nowhere near what I've seen with closed eyes on DMT.
They can, at the higher doses, LSD can take you into a similar realm, but it doesn't carry with it that kind of loving understanding.
Have you ever smoked?
Not directly.
Have you ever smoked DMT while on LSD?
Yes. One
you
time.
You tried it out?
Yeah. Have you done the same before?
No, I haven't tried it, but my brother has, and
it was really bizarre. Yeah, I did it on Christmas Day a little while back with a buddy of mine at the time. Yeah, man, that was really interesting. We were on like a medium to higher dose of LSD, and I won't get too sidetracked talking about this, but I looked at him, and we both enjoyed smoking the deems, and so I thought, what would it be like to do DMT right now? And he looked at me and said, well, we're kind of at the peak and we're only gonna come down from here, so we got to do it now. And I was like, well, let's do it, man. And I only did a little bit because I was really nervous, but that little bit was all it took to send me directly into hyperspace.
Really?
Yeah, it's kind of like with LSD, you're already like wading in the waters, you're already swimming, and that little, it only takes a little bit of DMT to like push your head under the water. That's the impression I got. But it seems like the DMT just kind of took over, and then I was still tripping when I came down.
Yeah, right. Were you able?
It's really bizarre.
So you were able to make out the come down of the DMT while on the LSD?
Yes. And it was just really bizarre, man.
Yeah.
That was kind of more of like an entertainment thing than it was like I had for the intention of doing some like deep shamanic journey.
Well, I mean,
for me at least,
it must have been very interesting and exciting to see what that combination was going to be like, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, man.
Hold on, I'm gonna take this moment to go pee again.
Sounds good.
I'll be right back.
Good point for a break. I'm gonna be right back as well.
Yo. Hope you're all enjoying the conversation. I'm having a good time, chilling, sipping coffee. Still got few things to talk about here. Quite a few things, actually, if our friend Shaman Tim has the time.
Hello.
What's up, man? So, dude, where are you at? How are you feeling, man?
I'm feeling great. This has been a really fascinating discussion so far. Thoroughly enjoyed this.
Oh, yeah, man.
How about yourself?
I'm doing good, dude. I'm having a great time. Feel like I'm it's kind of all coming into all my points and kind of sharing stuff throughout the whole conversation, but I still got quite a few things here that we can directly speak on for a little bit.
Okay.
But yeah.
Hold on. So I really wanted, while I was on the topic of DMT really quick, I kind of wanted to share a couple insights that I've gotten out of them, and it's not that long. It's a few quick notes I jotted down before we went ahead and started here. Because DMT is very sacred, and I've spoken at length about it before, and this is now where I'm going to describe what it's like. So I assume if you're watching this podcast at all, that you're going to have knowledge about what exactly DMT is, and you, of course, you're a DMT shaman in your own right. So I will say that some of the lessons I've learned out of DMT have been incredibly profound, and they've changed a lot of how I perceive my life in my ordinary waking state. On lighter doses of either LSD or mushrooms, I'll have a fun experience and I might learn a couple things, but it doesn't deeply change the way I experience my life in every moment. And so there's a realization I had in my course of my DMT journeys where I realized that when you're in the DMT realms, there's a kind of deep understanding, but also an astonishment that you experience while you're in there, because you're in a new reality that is so radically different from the one you were in before. And so it kind of forces you to give it a kind of respect and honor, and it's just inherently in and of itself mind-blowing. And through this, I realized that it's not just the DMT realm itself that's astonishing. Like our ordinary life is just as astonishing and weird as the DMT realms are. The only difference is that the human life is currently our default state of being. And if we focus on cultivating this sense, we can really integrate that sense of astonishment and really apply it to our waking state in every moment. And that's kind of a more fun way to navigate the process of life.
I can't exactly word to you guys and you what psychedelics have taught me, but I can say that it's always here. Psychedelics are always here with us. They're just turned down right now, and when you take that dose, it turns that dial back up, and you see it all come back in. And when you wake up the morning after a really intense psychedelic trip, you look around the room and you see what it was doing last night, and you're thinking, oh my God, dude, it's just, it's calming down, and it's alive. It's life is always here. Psychedelics are based off of this. Look around and realize the patterning and the color and the abstraction and the beauty. I was looking into a pan of oil heating up, and the flowing trails of oil moving around from the heat was incredibly psychedelic looking, and it just makes you realize how astonishing, like you were saying, how astonishing this life is itself. And, you know, look at the trees and look at the grass and look at dew in the sunlight and just all this different stuff. Look down at your driveway and look at how there's millions of different types of minerals, and get close to your skin or a piece of clothing and realize the thousands of threads that are woven in the cells. And it's just, the world is infinite. The world is miraculous. That's why Aldous Huxley, after taking mescaline, all he said towards everything was extraordinary. Because everything was just incredible. Everything was just wow, you know? And that's something deep that psychedelics have taught me.
Yeah, absolutely.
And also just they've taught me, you know, just through their miraculous workings, how much of a phony I am, and how out for my own good I am, and how I don't really care about spirituality. That's only to make me feel better and look cool and smart. Those are some hardcore things to be conveyed to you while you're high on a psychedelic drug, and, you know, you're just feeling like you're a fucking poser. Like, why am I acting like you? Like, I feel like a douchebag, you know what I mean? That's been a major thing, is like, psychedelics are like, look at yourself, look at how you act, look at how you conduct yourself and live your days, you know, that kind of stuff.
Exactly. Your mind, when you return to your ordinary life, is going to try to fool you and convince you that everything that's happening here is ordinary and normal. But that's about as far from the truth as you could possibly get. Our life unfolding in this world is the most extraordinary thing that's possibly happening.
This right here is the Big Bang exploding.
Yeah, exactly.
Me and you talking like, right now are
magical.
Yeah, dude, this is the moment. Everything in the world is happening right now. Do you think Donald Trump is inhaling or exhaling right now?
Good question.
No, it's just it's, everything is right now. Everything is right now. When you think of the past, when are you thinking about the past? When does the future take place? You know, it's that's another thing. Spirituality and also psychedelics have played a huge role in time.
Spirituality kind of shows you, and psychedelics kind of shock you into the fact that everything is happening in the present moment, and it's also miraculous and astonishing.
Spirituality suggests that, you know, spirituality suggests, hey, you don't need to be so uptight. Psychedelics are like, look how fucking uptight you are. You are so uptight. Oh my God, you're horrified. Look how scared you are.
There's actually
ego.
There's an interesting exercise I learned a while back where I go through it, and it kind of helps, you know, shift my state of being into that state of insight, into that realization of Buddha nature. And you'll go along with me for this for just a moment. So all right, so take out your hand. Take out your hand. Now touch your index finger to your thumb. Now close it into a fist. Now open your hand up into a fist. Okay. Now explain to me how you knew how to do all of that. Think about it.
Yeah, right.
Think about it for a second. You knew instantly how to do all of that without even having to think about it. How is it that you know how to operate this human body without any kind of knowledge like that? And for me, this is kind of an example of how the workings of the universe are more astonishing than we can possibly perceive, and that indeed even our own organism functioning itself is a miracle. And I don't know, Like
No,
for
man,
me,
I've
it's like an
thought,
exercise that cuts like a sword right through all like the mind made layers of nonsense.
have you, let me just tell you, I've demonstrated that on different videos,
Okay.
basically in ways where I say, I'm going to shut my fist, and I shut my fist. And then also, my fist just shut, and I'm saying in my head, I just did that, you know? And this brings into mind free will, choice. Do we make choices? This is the most grandest talk to have with my mom, because she
Uh-huh.
is a firm believer in free will and that we make decisions. And look, I just chose to drop this. See, I chose to pick it up. I chose to drop it again. See, I'm making choices, and I'm sitting in a position where it's all just happening. It's all just happening, you know?
Mm.
And in the same way, I can close my fist. The fist closes free of self and free of thinking I was doing it.
Mm.
I walk down the road, and I'm not thinking about how I'm walking, but I'm still walking. Walking is, but then all of a sudden I think I'm walking, and it feels like I'm doing it. Or your breath. Your breath just is going on, doing its thing. You don't know how the hell it's doing it. But then all of a sudden you become aware of your breath and think you need to be the one doing it, and you're the one that's breathing. And then your breath gets all scrambled and you're short breathed and feel like you're out of breath and all this weird stuff, because you're trying to do what's already happened of itself. You know what I mean?
That's really
And
deep.
like you said, I can tell myself, close your fist, close your fist, close your fist. And I can sit here and believe that my fist is closing because I want it to. But my fist is closing because that's what's happening. That's what's happening. And it's free of self. It's free of choice. And it's just how things happen. It's such a complex thing to describe.
See.
But there's the illusion that you're making a choice. But it's going to happen regardless. You can't not make a choice, because that of itself is a choice in which things happen. You can't escape the happening, you know, and it's you're trying to do what's already happening, but you're getting in the way because it's already itself. It's already baseline, fine, in sync, doing its thing. And your mind is what's trying to achieve something out of it, do it itself, thinks it's the one that's doing it. You know what I mean?
That's really interesting, because I kind of I 100% understand what you're saying, but I kind of interpret that whole phenomenon a little differently than what a lot of other people might. And so just kind of share really quick and see if it resonates at all. So the idea of free will is really interesting, but I think a lot of that, there's a lot of misunderstanding around what the self is or what it constitutes. And so at the human level, the human and the mind definitely do make decisions and choices and perform actions. But there's an important separation that you need to make between what is self and what is the human. And I don't know if I fully fleshed out my ideas on how deep this goes, because like you could make another argument in saying that the self is the being energy that constitutes the universe, and that is making the choice to create the universe as such as it is right now. So that might be a form of free will, but
The
anyway,
thing is,
I'm going off the rails here.
no, bro, you're good. You're good. And the predicament is that the self doesn't go beyond the mind. That's why you think you're the one doing it. I'm the one doing this. It's not like I am behind the mind and the mind is what's doing this. It's all one happening. And because I think I am the mind and am conceptualizing what's happening, I think I'm doing it. But it is completely free of identity in essence. The fist closes free of self and opens free of self. You wake up and you go to sleep free of self, you know, it's not of your doing. And I feel like it's an illusion that we make choices. Let me think for a moment on this.
Yeah, my interpretation through what I learned through Hinduism and Buddhism and things like that, the way I interpreted the Buddhist principle of anatman was to be that anatman means no self, but that's supposed to stress the importance that your identity is not limited to the human body and the mind. And so I don't know, the way I interpret is that the self is simply aware of the human that makes choices and decisions.
What is that's a completely perfect way to look at it, because that's apparent. It's apparent. But what is a choice? What is a decision? When I go close my hand, what just happened? Was it that I am presently thinking I am going to do that made it a choice? And in the same way, I'm breathing. What's different? What's different between the natural happening of it and the choice of doing it? What is the choice?
I don't know how to answer that. I don't know. Honestly.
It's because it's not there. It's not a thing. It's that the mind is actively thinking it's doing it, that it appears to be that the mind is doing it. You know? Like Alan Watts talks about your self is as real as the circle is when you whip a cigarette in a dark room. If you got thoughts of self going off consistently enough, it's going to seem like there's a self, there's a person. But it's just a repetition of thought in which I exist. This is what I am. I am this, you know? And it creates this illusion of self, of the doer, you know? And he talks about the sequence of thoughts. He says, it's not like it's going thought, 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 thinker, thought, 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 thinker, thought, 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 thinker. It's just thought, 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 thought.
Okay.
You think you are this self-aware of mind, but you neglect to realize that that is the mind itself doing that. The mind is self. And the thing is, when we use this mind to describe self, we place the self in different parts. The self is the universe. The self is the mind. The self is thoughts and who I think I am. And we're just identifying the self as awareness. We use the mind to find that self because the self only resides in the mind. But like I said, breathing and opening your fist and walking and doing all these things that you think you can make choices about can happen completely free of self. You don't even need to be thinking about who you are to open and close your fist, to eat, to walk, to balance, to heal yourself. It's all free of self. And you think you're the one doing stuff only when you're actively thinking you're doing it. And that's the illusion. That's the illusion. You know what I mean?
I see. That is very, very deep.
I just picked this coffee cup up, and amidst me drinking the coffee, I realized I didn't just choose to pick that up, but I did in appearance. It's apparent that I chose to pick this coffee cup up and sip it, but I played no part in it. I was absent in picking up this coffee cup and only realized amidst sipping it, holy shit, I picked up this coffee cup. I didn't mean to do that. And think about all the things you don't mean to do, you know? When you trip and fall, that shows you that you're not the one in control. You're not the one doing it, you know? It's very fucking far out to like karma. How things are just happening. It's free of interference. It's all one interwoven experience that is happening perfectly. Chaos occurs perfectly. Suffering occurs perfectly. When you get your arm cut off, or just a cut in general, your brain precisely and perfectly sends signals to tell you that that part that hurts. It's all happening perfectly. And you closing your fist, you know, it's all happening perfectly. And you don't know how it's happening. You don't know how the hell it's doing any of it. You are just this wind-like thing that is present and then not, and then present and then not, and then feels victimized when it's told it's not a thing at all. You know what I mean? It's weird. Ego is very weird.
Yes, it's a very tricky and sticky subject. Really capable of really tripping up the mind.
And that's why in my most recent video I said, like, only look into the mind if you know what you're looking at and you have a rough outline of what you're going to be looking at. You know what I mean? Because the mind is incredibly deep. The mind is what's looking. The mind is what's thinking. The mind is what thinks it's the doer doing all the things, you know? And it's hard to use that identity that you've been your whole life to look at itself. It's like trying to bite your own teeth, you know, or taste your own tongue. The tongue is the taster, you know? You are the ego. So you can't look at the ego, you know? It's incredibly complex stuff.
Yeah, man, absolutely. And this all goes to show that like the functioning of like the universe at large is far exceeds our ability to comprehend it, really. And yeah, we just need to trust in the process.
I want to take a moment to talk about because, you know, it's completely apparent and seemingly obvious that we make choices. So if we're gonna play in the realm that we make choices, we best damn be making the right choices, because it's easy to realize you don't make choices and then not do anything with your life. But to think you make choices and still not make the right choice with your life, that's even worse. You know? So that makes me think about mindfulness and right action and karma, which is one of my points here. And that's the act of waking up in the morning and not giving your ego the opportunity to take you back under. Catch the ego at its source. When you feel like you're irritated because something happened, realize that you're losing your grip again, that you're losing sight, that you're going back into who you think you are, you know? And when you're unconsciously eating, you know, consciously chew and swallow and appreciate what you're doing and that it's feeding you. And you know, when you go out into public and you see all these irritating lost souls that aren't awakened as you, realize how much of an ego you're being, and realize the suffering that is probably still present in all those people, and even in you, because you're still sitting there judging them to make yourself feel better. Realize all that. That's all the mindfulness. Realizing how much of an ego you really are still. Thinking you've overcome your ego. Who the hell overcame your ego? Who overcomes ego? Nobody comes out the other end. If it worked right, you aren't an ego, you know, and you're still caught up if you think you're this person doing this thing, trying to achieve this thing, you know. But yeah, just it, and like you said, it's one thing to learn, like quite a while ago, it's one thing to learn about spirituality, but it's quite difficult to implement it, you know. And that doesn't mean sit and force yourself to meditate. It really, on a simple level, just means be a truthful, wholesome, kind person, and that is doing things out of a truthful intent. If you have bad intent, be aware of it and let people know you have bad intent. You can't help it. That's who you are. Don't pretend don't pretend you have good intent. Don't pretend shit. That's the problem, is we're all pretending this shit and we're all in denial, and that's why we're all suffering. But yeah, just taking responsibility for your own wrongdoings and your own flaws and how caught up you still are, and just doing the best you can to be compassionate and be open-minded and not increase suffering, but do your best to resolve it and to stop it.
Do your best to subtract whatever portion of suffering you can from the total human pool.
Yes, in your own responsibility, you know. And I see why people go and sit in caves, man. They don't want to make people suffer anymore. They don't want to suffer anymore. They're so lost in ego that they need to extricate themselves from society because their ego is so dangerous. They don't have what it takes to tell people how to become enlightened because they're still ego. They would rather go sit in a cave and let it all go and just hope everybody else is coming along eventually, because it's dangerous to sit and preach, you know?
It absolutely is, yes.
You're going to, yeah, without realizing it, you're going to cause so much suffering, so much sadness, so much delusion and premature a breakdown of self, you know? I don't feel responsible to teach the things that I think I know, but here I am talking about it, you know? And I guess in a sense you could consider me and my channel dangerous to people who are trying to stay intact without realizing that they're trying to stay intact, you know what I mean?
Yes. And then, yeah, I think that kind of depends on how you market yourself, really. Because you say, as long as you don't say, like, I am the teacher and here is the truth, because the reality is we're all just along the path. We're all at different points in the path, and inherently as humans, we're chatterboxes. We like discussing about things we learn. So long as you don't have the illusion that you have the total and complete truth or authority to try to assert that over other people. Yeah,
I'm gonna say what I say and I'm gonna do what I do, and it's just gonna happen, you know. And that's what we're all doing. So like, you're going to affect people how you do without your control over it, you know. You just talking about these things, even if you don't understand them, could incredibly move someone, you know. And just by being the way you are could move people and does affect people, you know, on ways that you aren't aware of because you just aren't aware of what other people are thinking and how they feel, you know. But
yeah, absolutely. It could go ahead and set in place that chain of motion to bring somebody along to the path that might have not previously been exposed to it.
right.
Yeah. Hold on 1 second here. I'm gonna open up this window a little bit because it's getting kind of dark here.
Yeah, you're good, dude.
That's a bit better. A little bit better. Yeah, I've been messing with this lighting situation here for a while. It's not been wanting to work out for me.
So I got a question for you, bro. How often do you get angry, jealous, sad, and irritated and selfish, and you know, like there's
All those generally negative qualities.
yeah.
Very frequently still.
Yo, move
Yeah.
move your mic move your mic away just a touch.
Just a little bit. Okay.
Yeah, it was just a little raspy.
Okay.
What did you say?
Interesting.
Very frequently?
Yes. Quite frequently still, yes.
Exactly, man. And look at the things we preach. Look at the things we talk about. And yet we live our lives. I live my life in a way that does not align with what I know and what I say. And it brings into the equation, practice what you preach. But you know, that's what I was kind of saying earlier, is I'm gonna say the things I do, and it's not up to me what you think of it. And if I want to say it, I'm going to say it, you know. And regardless of if I'm meditating every day, I'll say no, the self doesn't exist as much as I want, you know, as much as my ego wants to say it. And as bad as I live my life, I'm going to say the things I say, you know. And it's like,
I see. Well, I still think it's possible for overall change in the personality to happen, and albeit I think that happens very gradually, because in reference to my previous video that I put out, you know, I was severely depressed at one point in my life, and I was even hospitalized for it, and I consider myself to be a completely different person now as compared to then. I'm similar in a lot of aspects, but you know, I don't have a debilitating condition anymore, and my personality, I guess I'll just say, like, my general character traits have improved to a more positive direction because of like steps I've taken. Yeah, my mind is going blank again. I'm starting to get tired, man.
how long have we been talking?
Just past the 3-hour mark.
Holy crap.
Yes, it has been a while. So I do have a couple things I need to do this evening, so I think I'm gonna wrap this up again soon. But we should definitely get together again sometime soon to explore this topic in more depth.
Sure, homie. There's no way to encapsulate what we're talking about in even a 3-hour video. No way at all. But yeah, I guess, you know, as I've continued talking through this podcast, I've moved into a it's moved my mind into a place of wanting to be in right action, you know, and spend the rest of the day in a place of awareness and making sure I'm not getting out of hand, you know, and being compassionate and that kind of stuff. But yeah, dude, a very, very good conversation. Like I said, this stuff could go on forever.
Yes. This has been a beautiful, very fun and enlightening discussion, and I've learned a lot by exploring all these ideas with you, and it's been fantastic, and we should definitely do this again sometime soon.
Yeah, dude. And to whoever's pushed through this 3-hour-long podcast, thank you very much for watching. I said it while you were gone at one point, Shaman Tim. I friggin' love these collabs, and honestly want to be doing this more often. I've been reaching out to different people I've seen on YouTube. Hey, want to get together and talk, because it's just awesome. And really, this is the essence of what I really wanted to be doing with this channel, was talking with other people and getting to know other people and sharing our perspectives of this thing we're all talking about, and it's just so awesome having the opportunity to do this, So again, thank you, dude. Thank you, all the viewers.
You're an excellent conversation partner, and yeah, kudos to all of our viewers who have made it this far. I love you guys. You're all amazing.
Thank you guys very much for watching.
Yes, thank you so much, and yeah, stay tuned. We both have more content coming.
See you guys later.
Peace out. So really quick though, because of the way this recording is working, as soon as I stop the recording, it's going to end the call. So I'm going to it's going to process the video for a second, but I will get back in touch with you very soon to work out the details as far as that goes.
Yeah, dude, we've had an incredible talk today, dude. Relax for the rest of your night. Take your time, do your thing, bro. It was an awesome talk.
Good stuff, man. And
but yeah,
take it easy, take care, and we'll keep in touch. And
yeah, dude, for sure.
Alrighty.
I'll see you later, homie.
Take care, everybody.